Hey everyone, Story Master here. Welcome back. I know a lot of you put these videos on to fall asleep, and I'm really glad you're here. Before we begin, please take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think. Alright, get comfortable, take a slow breath in and out, and let's start tonight's story. The first time I saw the body, it looked like a mistake someone had tried to correct. Not hidden in a river. Not dumped in a field. Not staged for headlines. It was placed in a clean, ordinary room that smelled of lemon disinfectant and new paint, as if whoever did it believed cleanliness could rewrite reality. I got the call at 9:17 p.m. from a number that didn't display a name. The voice was male, controlled, and tired in a way that suggested he'd been carrying something heavy for too long. "You're the investigator," he said. "Who's this?" I asked. "I manage a building," he replied. "We have a problem in flat 4D. I need you here before the police turn it into a circus." That alone was suspicious. People who call cops call cops. People who call me are usually trying to control the story. "What kind of problem?" I asked. A pause. Then, quieter, "I think she's dead." I didn't ask who she was, because if you're wrong you've made a mess, and if you're right you don't want to waste time. "Address," I said. He gave it. A newish block near the old industrial edge of the city, where developers had tried to turn warehouses into lifestyle living. Those places always look sleek from the brochure and tired in the hallway. When I arrived, the lobby lights were too bright and the air was too still. The building manager, Adrian, waited by the lift with a ring of keys and a face that had practiced neutrality until it cracked. "You came fast," he said. "Show me," I replied. On the way up, he talked too much. That's another red flag. People who are innocent usually speak in fragments. They're shocked, confused, nervous. People who are trying to direct you speak in paragraphs. "She's a tenant," he said. "Quiet. Works late. Complained about noise in the service corridor last week. Then today another resident reported a smell. I went to check. The door was locked, but the chain was on. From inside. That detail, chain on, hit my spine like cold water. We stepped out on the 4th floor. The corridor was clean, gray carpet, white walls, the kind of design that tries to remove character so nothing ever feels like a home. Outside 4D, Adrian stopped and rubbed his thumb along the keyring as if friction could calm him. "Last chance," he said, eyes on the door. If it's bad, I don't want to be blamed for breaking in." "You already will be," I said. "If you wait." He knocked. No answer. He tried the master key. It turned. The door opened a few inches and stopped against the chain. The smell came through immediately, sweet, stale, wrong. Not garbage. Not damp. Human. Adrian took a step back, face pale. "You see?" I did. The chain was engaged from the inside. "Call the police," I told him. He hesitated a fraction too long. I thought. "Now," I said. He fumbled for his phone and walked away down the corridor, speaking too quietly as if he didn't want the building to hear what he was confessing. I stayed at the door and looked through the narrow gap. You can learn a lot from a gap if you've learned to look. The hallway inside the flat looked tidy. Shoes placed neatly. A key bowl on a console. A framed print on the wall that screamed, "Show home." No signs of struggle. No overturned furniture. No broken lamp. Staged. I crouched and looked at the lower part of the doorframe. The chain mount had fresh scratches near the screws, tiny crescent marks like someone had worked on it recently. Most people wouldn't notice. Most people don't stare at doors for a living. Behind me, a neighbor's door opened a crack. A woman's voice whispered, "Is she?" "Go back inside," I said, not unkindly. "And lock your door." The crack closed. In 10 minutes, police arrived with the kind of speed that tells you Adrian had used the right words: dead body, smell, chain lock. 2 officers and a supervisor. They asked for the manager. Adrian came back with a face that tried to be helpful. They cut the chain and opened the door fully. The air hit us like a damp cloth. Flat 4D was quiet in that eerie way that only a room with no living breath can be. The officers moved in, calling out, "Police," even though nobody answers that if they're dead. I didn't go in. I stood in the corridor and watched the faces as they saw what I couldn't yet. One officer swore under his breath. Then the supervisor turned and said, "Stay outside." So I stayed outside, because I don't enjoy being arrested for helping. Adrian stood beside me, shaking. "This is going to ruin us," he whispered. "Her name," I said. "Tell me her name." He swallowed. "Lena," he said. "Lena Kovac." "Occupation?" I asked. "Remote work," he replied. "Customer support, I think." She didn't talk much. People always say that about the dead, as if quietness is a personality flaw instead of a survival skill. A paramedic arrived. More officers. Someone taped off the corridor. They took statements. Adrian played the role of cooperative building manager perfectly, too perfectly. And then a detective arrived. Real detective, not me. She looked at the scene through the open door, then looked at Adrian's master key ring, then looked at me. "You called this in?" she asked Adrian. "Yes," he said quickly. "I was doing my duty." "And you?" she asked me. "Private investigator," I said. "I was called by the building manager." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Called before police were called." Adrian's mouth opened, then closed. I wanted professional advice. The detective's face didn't change, but I could feel her interest sharpen. She took my name and number and told me to stay available. Then she went inside and shut the door behind her, leaving me in the corridor with Adrian and the hum of fluorescent lights. "Why did you call me?" I asked him softly. He rubbed his forehead. "Because police take control," he said. "They make it public. Tenants leave. Investors panic." "That's your reason," I said. "Not hers." He looked at me with a flash of irritation. "You don't understand what this does to a building." "I understand what this did to Lena," I replied. He looked away. The thing about murder is that it doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. But it always leaves something behind, some little mistake, some tiny truth that doesn't fit the story being pushed. That night, I went home and couldn't sleep. Not because I'm haunted by spirits, because I'm haunted by patterns. I kept thinking about that chain lock. The scratches. The tidy room. It didn't feel like a panicked killer. It felt like a controlled one. Someone who had time, access, and confidence. And confidence comes from familiarity. The next morning, I got a message from an unknown number. No greeting. No threat. Just a photo. The photo showed the inside of Lena's flat, taken from a low angle near her kitchen counter. You could see the hallway. You could see the door. You could see the chain hanging loose where police had cut it. And in the reflection of the microwave door, you could see me standing in the corridor outside, blurred but recognizable. The message underneath said, "You were there." That wasn't a ghost story. That was surveillance. Someone had been watching me while I watched the door. Someone wanted me to know they could. I didn't reply. I forwarded the photo to the detective who'd taken my details, with one line: "Someone has internal camera access." She called me 2 minutes later. "Don't touch anything," she said. I wasn't going to, I replied. But you should know this wasn't spontaneous. We know, she said. Cause of death is blunt force trauma. She was hit hard, once, then moved. Moved from where? I asked. Bathroom, she said. Blood traces start there. The living room's been wiped. Wiped. Of course it had. Cleanliness as rewriting. I met the detective later that day at the station, not inside the interrogation rooms, outside, near the entrance, where conversations can be quick and deniable. Her name was Inspector Webb. She had the kind of face that didn't waste sympathy, but also didn't waste cruelty. Why did the manager call you? She asked. Reputation control, I said. He said it. And you believed him, she replied. I believe he believes that, I said. But he also knew details he shouldn't have known. Chain on. Smell. Complaint. Too many specifics. Webb studied me. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting he's either involved, I said, or he's already been coached. She didn't argue. She simply asked, what would you do next if this was your case? Treat it like an access crime, I said. Not a passion crime. Somebody got in without force. Somebody used routines. And somebody knew how to manipulate what people assume about safety. Webb nodded once, barely. We're pulling access logs. Lift logs. CCTV. Contractor lists. Start with who can disable cameras for maintenance, I said. Her eyes flicked up at that word. Maintenance, she repeated. Everyone's favorite excuse, I replied. She watched me for another second, then said, if you hear from that number again, call me first. I promised, knowing full well that promises are easy until your phone lights up at 2 a.m. 3 nights later, it did. Unknown number. A single text. Next one won't be quiet. Attached, a screenshot of a building directory. Not Lena's building. Another one across town. A name highlighted, Mara Linford, flat 6A. I stared at it until my eyes hurt. This wasn't just intimidation. This was a warning, a lure, and an admission all at once. Whoever sent it wanted a race. They wanted me to run toward their chosen scene, because that's how they controlled investigators, by pulling them like strings. I called Inspector Webb immediately and sent the screenshot. Get units there, I said. Now. She didn't waste time asking why. She heard the urgency. Stay away, she ordered. I'm already in the car, I said, and hung up before she could argue. I drove fast but not reckless. Reckless is how you become a second victim and hand the killer a bonus. When I reached the building, there were already police cars outside. Webb had moved faster than I expected. Officers stood at the entrance, radios crackling, faces sharp. Webb spotted me and shot me a look like a warning flare. You were told, she began. I know, I said. Where's Mara? Welfare check in progress, she snapped. Stay behind the tape. I stayed behind the tape. Mostly. I watched the building door. I watched the windows. I watched the people who drifted nearby pretending to be curious residents. And then I saw him. Not a man with a mask. Not a man in black. A man in a work jacket carrying a small tool bag, walking toward the entrance with the steady, bored gait of someone who belonged. A contractor. The most invisible costume in a city. He didn't look at the police cars. He didn't pause. He walked straight for the door like the building would open for him. I stepped closer to Webb and spoke low. That guy, I said. Tool bag. He's too calm. She glanced, then signaled an officer. Stop him, she said. The officer stepped forward. Sir. Hold up. The man paused and turned his head, not startled, annoyed, like someone had interrupted his shift. Yeah, he said. ID, the officer demanded. The man reached into his pocket slowly and produced a badge. Not police. Not company branded. Just a laminated card with a generic logo. Webb's eyes narrowed. Which contractor are you with? She asked. He smiled, small. Facilities, he said. Emergency call out. By who? She asked. The man's smile held, but his eyes moved, tiny, measuring movements, like he was counting exits. Property management, he replied. Webb took the badge and examined it. This isn't valid, she said. The man shrugged. Then call my office. He took one step backward. Webb's hand lifted slightly. Detain him, she said. And that's when the man dropped the polite mask completely. He shoved past the officer with sudden force, sprinted toward the side street, and vanished between parked cars like he'd rehearsed the route. 2 officers ran after him. Webb swore and turned toward the entrance. Get up to 6A. Now. The lift was too slow, so they took the stairs. I stayed behind the tape, because I'm not useful dead. But my mind ran anyway. He'd come dressed as Access. He'd planned to get inside during the chaos. He'd intended to reach Mara before police reached her. Which meant Mara wasn't random. Mara was scheduled. Inside, footsteps thundered. Doors opened. Radios barked. The building woke up in the worst possible way. Then Webb reappeared in the lobby, face tight. She's alive, she said to the officers. Barely. She was sedated. My chest loosened slightly. But, Webb continued, her phone is gone, her laptop is gone, and her front door was locked from the inside. Locked from the inside again. Same signature. My skin went cold all over. Chain trick? I asked quietly. Webb's eyes snapped to me. How do you know about that? Because Lena's door, I said. Same lie. Webb stared for a second, then turned away and began issuing orders. I didn't need her to confirm it. The pattern was clear now. This killer wasn't hunting in alleys. He was hunting through doors. He used access methods, contractor costumes, generic badges, and procedural language, to get into buildings without force. He used sedatives to control victims quietly. He staged locks to delay discovery. And he used tech, internal cameras, maybe building systems, to watch who was watching him. And now he'd escalated from murder to attempted abduction with a taunt. That wasn't confidence anymore. That was arrogance. Arrogance makes mistakes. The mistake came the next day, when Webb called me. We pulled footage, she said. Your unknown number photo. It came from a building-installed camera in Lena's flat. That's impossible, I said. It's not, she replied. Lena had a smart home package bundled with the lease. Camera in the kitchen, marketed as security. A camera in the kitchen. That's how he watched me in the corridor. He had access to her device. How did he access it? I asked. Login was reset from a device on the building's Wi-Fi, Webb said. Building Wi-Fi. Contractor access. Adrian, I said, and the name tasted sour. The manager. Webb exhaled. We brought him in. He denies everything. Claims the Wi-Fi is open to residents. Is it? I asked. No, Webb said. It's supposed to be secured. But Adrian had admin privileges. That's the thing about modern buildings, someone always has admin privileges. And admin privileges are a weapon if you put them in the wrong hands. Webb went quiet for a beat, then said, we found something else. The maintenance contractor listed for both buildings? Same shell company. Northline facilities. Another costume. You have his face? I asked. Partial, Webb replied. Enough to circulate. Then circulate it wider than police, I said. To contractors. To concierge networks. To letting agencies. We can't do that without risking panic, Webb said. Panic is already scheduled, I replied. He's proving it. That night, my phone rang again. Unknown number. This time there was a voice message. A man, calm and close to the mic. No shouting. No anger. You like patterns, he said. So here's one, you keep arriving after. Would you like to arrive before? Then an address. Not a building. A place, a showroom for smart home systems on the edge of town. A trap, obviously. But traps aren't always meant to catch you. Sometimes they're meant to distract you while the real move happens elsewhere. I forwarded the voicemail to Webb, then I went to the only place that made sense if he was using smart home access, the showroom supplier chain. The installation logs. The customer lists. I didn't break in. I waited in the parking lot and watched who arrived. At 8:37 p.m., a gray hatchback rolled in and parked at the far end. A man stepped out carrying a tool bag. Same posture. Same calm. He walked toward the showroom side door, punched in a code, and entered like he belonged. He didn't know I'd be there because he assumed I'd rush to the address like a dog chasing a thrown stick. I didn't move immediately. I called Webb and gave her the plate, the vehicle, the location. This is him, I said. He's inside. Stay put, Webb ordered. We're coming. I stayed put, recording, waiting under a streetlight that made my car feel like a stage. I watched the showroom's windows. No movement. Then, 2 minutes later, the rear door opened and the man came out carrying a cardboard box. He put it in the hatchback. Another box. Then a third. Not stealing TVs, stealing something small, light, valuable. Hardware. Access devices. He was replenishing. He closed the trunk and paused, head turning slightly, as if he could smell attention. Then he looked directly toward my car. Even with distance and shadow, I felt it like a hand on my throat, recognition. He started walking toward me. Not running. Walking. That's confidence. I didn't panic. I didn't start the car and flee. If I did, he'd learn I was easy to move. I stayed still, phone recording, windows up, doors locked. He approached until he was under the edge of the streetlight and I saw his face clearly for the first time. Plain features, clean-shaven, the kind of face you'd forget if you didn't have a reason to remember it. He raised his hand and tapped my window lightly with one knuckle. Polite. I kept my eyes forward. He leaned closer, mouth near the glass, and spoke softly enough that only I could hear through the barrier. You should have answered the first time, he said. Then he stepped back as sirens appeared at the far end of the road, blue flashes washing the showroom wall. He smiled again, almost amused, and turned to walk away. He didn't run. He didn't need to, until Webb's car skidded into the lot and officers poured out. Hands, someone shouted. That's when he ran. He sprinted toward the alley behind the showroom, but he'd misjudged one thing. This wasn't an apartment corridor with predictable blind spots. It was an open lot with multiple cameras, multiple angles, and multiple officers who weren't afraid of making noise. They tackled him hard on the asphalt. The tool bag spilled open. Inside were fobs, badge blanks, a small syringe kit, and a phone full of login credentials. Not supernatural. Not mysterious. Just a man who treated people like doors. In interrogation, he didn't confess at first. Men like that don't. They hide behind procedure until procedure fails. But the evidence didn't need confession. It spoke in timestamps, in access logs, in purchase histories, in the way smart home devices record logins with obsessive honesty. He had used Adrian's building admin access to reset smart camera logins. He had used a shell contractor company to get into buildings. He had targeted women who lived alone and relied on routine. He had killed Lena when she fought back, then tried to stage her door to buy time. He had tried to abduct Mara to replace the lost victim in his pipeline and keep his system running. It wasn't a demon. It was a workflow. And workflows break when you take away their access. Weeks later, Webb called me with the final line I needed to hear to let the case sit in a file instead of in my chest. "Adrian's been charged," she said. "Not with murder. With facilitating access. He took money to hand over admin privileges and contractor schedules. He told himself it wasn't his problem." "People always do," I said. "And Lena?" Webb asked quietly. "They got his face," I said. "They got his tools. That's what they'll call justice." Webb didn't argue. She knew. When I finally slept, it wasn't because I felt safe. It was because the pattern was broken. But even now, when I enter a building and someone hands me a visitor badge with a polite smile, I still hear that first anonymous warning in my head. Leave. Don't stay polite. Because in a city built on access codes and procedures, the most dangerous person isn't the one in the shadows. It's the one who looks official enough to be ignored. The call came in at 11:26 p.m., and the first thing I noticed wasn't the panic in the woman's voice, it was the way she tried to keep it out. "I need help," she said. "But I don't want police. Not yet." That's what people say when they're already bargaining with fear. "My name is Eliza," she continued. "I think someone's living in my apartment." "That's not possible if you're living there," I said. "I'm not," she replied. "I've been staying with my sister for a week. I came back tonight and my key worked, but the place wasn't mine anymore." I'd heard versions of this. Usually it's a messy breakup, a landlord dispute, a roommate who took liberties. Almost never is it what the caller thinks it is. "Eliza," I said, "tell me what changed." She inhaled shakily. "The photos on the wall were different," she said. "My towels were gone. The scent was different. And there was a toothbrush in my bathroom that wasn't mine." "That's still not someone living there," I said. "That's someone was there." "No," she insisted. "There was food in the fridge. Warm. Like someone had just stepped out." I asked for the address and told her to stay outside. People die because they want closure more than safety. Her building was on the edge of the city center, a converted office block with long corridors and keycard entry. The kind of place that looks secure in the brochure and turns out to be secure mainly against residents. When I arrived, Eliza stood under the lobby camera with her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She was in her late 20s, smart coat, eyes too sharp for the hour. "You called me," I said. She nodded and led me to the lift without speaking. The silence was heavy, rehearsed. On the 4th floor, we walked to her door. She held up her key like it might testify. "It works," she whispered. "But I swear, it's not my place." I told her to stand back. I unlocked the door and pushed it open slowly. The air inside was wrong. Not in a supernatural sense. In a human sense. The air had the warm, faintly sweet smell of someone who'd been cooking recently. A living smell. Not the stale quiet of an empty flat. The furniture was familiar in shape but not in detail. Same sofa model, different throw. Same cheap art prints, different frames. A house can change fast, but not in a week unless someone is trying to make it feel like it always belonged to them. On the coffee table sat a paperback novel with a receipt used as a bookmark. The receipt was dated today. And on the receipt was a name, Eliza Hart. Eliza's breath hitched behind me. "That's me," she said. "That's my name." I didn't like the way her voice sounded. Not shocked, spooked, like she'd stepped into a story she'd already heard whispered. I walked to the kitchen. 2 mugs in the sink. One still wet. A pot on the stove, lid slightly off. When I lifted it, warm steam brushed my face. Tomato soup, fresh. Somebody had been here minutes ago. "Eliza," I said quietly, "do you have any reason someone would pretend to be you?" Her eyes flicked away for half a second. That half second mattered. "No," she said. I didn't call her a liar. I simply nodded like I believed her, because sometimes you let people keep the lie until you know where it's going. In the bedroom, the bed was made. Too neatly. Hotel neat. And on the pillow was a long dark hair. Eliza's hair was blonde. "Stay in the doorway," I told her. "Don't touch anything." I opened the wardrobe. Half the clothes inside looked like Eliza's style, professional, neutral. But the sizes were slightly different. The shoes were a half size off. Someone wasn't just borrowing her space. Someone was practicing being her. And then I found the phone. It was face down in the top drawer of her nightstand, still charging. A cheap burner handset, not a smartphone. The screen lit when I lifted it, no lock code, no wallpaper, no personal photos. Just one open text conversation. The last message sent, 5 minutes ago, read, "She's here." Another message arrived while I was staring. "Make sure it's the right one." My skin went cold. This wasn't an identity theft for money. This was someone running a selection process. I put the phone back carefully, exactly where it was, and stepped out into the living room. "Eliza," I said, keeping my voice low, "we're leaving. Right now." She frowned. "Why?" "Because whoever was here," I said, "is coming back. And they're not coming back for their soup." We moved quickly, but the corridor swallowed sound. By the time we reached the lift, the doors were already open. Someone was inside. A woman, late 20s or early 30s, dark hair, neat coat. She held a paper bag that smelled like bread and herbs. She looked up and smiled at Eliza as if she'd been expecting her. "Hi," the woman said warmly. "You must be Eliza." Eliza froze. I felt my pulse slow down in that unpleasant way it does when danger is suddenly close and calm. The woman's eyes moved to me. "And you are?" she asked. "Maintenance," I said instantly, because it was the kind of lie that keeps doors open for a second longer. The woman nodded like that made perfect sense. "Great," she said. "Then you can fix the lock after she leaves." "After she leaves." "Not after we get home. Not after you're done. After she leaves." The woman stepped forward and held out her hand to Eliza. "Come on," she said gently. "There's been a misunderstanding. Let's talk inside." Eliza's hand twitched, as if politeness might still win. I caught Eliza's wrist and pulled her back. "No," I said, and my voice was firm enough to cut through the corridor's hush. The woman's smile didn't break. Her eyes did something else. They sharpened, like a blade coming out of a sleeve. "Okay," she said softly. "Then we do it here." She dropped the paper bag. Bread rolls bounced on the carpet like absurd little witnesses. And she reached into her coat. I didn't wait to see if it was a knife or a syringe. Either way, it would have meant control. I shoved Eliza sideways toward the stairwell and hit the push bar with my shoulder. The alarm didn't scream. Some buildings disable their own alarms to avoid complaints. The door opened silently. We ran down the stairs 2 flights before I heard footsteps above, measured, not panicked. Whoever was following us wasn't improvising. On the 2nd floor landing, Eliza gasped, "Who is she?" "I don't know yet," I said. "But she knows you." We burst into the lobby and crossed toward the glass doors. Outside, on the street, a car was idling at the curb. Black, clean, no markings. The driver's window was down. The driver didn't look at us, he looked at his phone. Then his head lifted. And he looked directly at Eliza. Eliza stumbled like the gaze had hit her physically. I grabbed her and turned hard, heading toward the lit convenience store across the street, witnesses, cameras, noise. Behind us, the building door opened. The dark-haired woman stepped out calmly, one hand still in her coat. The car engine rose slightly, ready. It wasn't a random threat. It was a coordinated pickup. I got Eliza into the store, straight to the counter, under the ceiling cameras. I asked the cashier to call the police. Eliza started shaking so badly she couldn't speak. Through the store's glass, I watched the dark-haired woman pause on the sidewalk. She saw the cashier pick up the phone. She saw the attention gather. And she did something that told me we'd just seen the first real twist of the night. She didn't run. She smiled once, almost kindly, then turned and walked away at a normal pace, disappearing into the crowd like she'd never existed. The black car rolled off smoothly, no squeal, no hurry. Eliza stared at the street, face drained. "Why would anyone?" she whispered. I looked down at her hand. Her nails were bitten to the quick. Not a normal habit for a woman who looked so composed. More like someone who'd been living in fear for a while. "Eliza," I said quietly, "tell me the truth. Who are you hiding from?" Her eyes filled, but not with tears, more like with calculation, the moment a person decides whether to trust you with their real story. Then she said, almost too softly to hear, "I'm not Eliza Hart." And right then, before the sirens arrived, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Wrong one. I stared at it, and understood the second twist. They weren't trying to steal her identity. They were trying to find a specific person, someone who had been using Eliza's name as a shield. And now they knew she wasn't her. Which meant the real Eliza Hart, whoever she was still out there. And someone was still hunting. The first time I saw the suitcase, it looked too clean to be real. It sat on the pavement beside a bus stop like an object placed for a photograph, upright, handle extended, wheels aligned with the curb. No scuffs. No rain streaks. No sticker tags. Just a black hard-shell case reflecting streetlight like a polished lie. I would have walked past it if the woman hadn't been standing 2 steps away, frozen, holding her phone in both hands as if it was the only thing keeping her from falling. "Is that yours?" I asked her. She blinked at me, startled, then shook her head too quickly. "No," she said. "But, it's supposed to be." "What does that mean?" I asked. Her eyes flicked left and right. "He said he'd leave it here," she whispered. "He said if I wanted her back, I had to pick it up. Not call anyone. Not talk to anyone. Just pick it up and go." I'd been on my way home. No case. No client. No reason to be awake other than habit. But the words, "want her back," don't leave you alone once you've heard them. "Who's her?" I asked. The woman swallowed. "My sister," she said. "Mila." "Where's your sister?" I asked. Her lips trembled. "I don't know. She went missing 3 days ago. Police said, you know what they say. Adults can disappear. Wait 48 hours. Maybe she left." The woman looked like she'd been repeating those sentences to herself until they stopped sounding like language. My name is Jana, she added quickly. I work nights at the care home on Kirkdale Road. I'm not a dramatic person. But this is real. She held up her phone with shaking hands. On the screen was a message thread with an unknown number. The last text read, "Bus stop. 140, black case. Take it. No police." Below it, another message. "You talk equals she dies." I stared at the suitcase again. It was 138. This wasn't a desperate kidnapper. This was someone who liked timing. Someone who liked control. Someone who assumed fear would do their work for them. "Don't touch it," I said. Jana flinched. "But..." "I know," I cut in gently. "But if you touch it, you become part of their procedure." Her eyes darted to the road. "What do I do then?" "You can't win a hostage situation with bravery. You win it with patience and records. But patience is hard when someone you love has been turned into leverage." I made a decision that I hated immediately because it meant putting myself in the frame. I stepped closer to the suitcase, not to grab it, but to look around it. The pavement was wet. There were faint wool tracks leading from the alley behind the stop to the curb. A delivery. From a vehicle, not a hand. I glanced up. The bus stop had a small CCTV dome on the pole, and another camera on the corner of the shop across the street. Whoever chose this place wanted cameras present, not to catch them, but to catch us. Cameras are a threat when criminals control the story. They can frame you as the thief, the accomplice, the one who picked up the bag. Jana's phone buzzed. A new text. "Move." The word hit like a shove. Jana took a half step forward before she remembered my warning. Her breathing turned quick and shallow, panic trying to take the wheel. "Listen to me," I said, keeping my voice low. "If your sister is alive, they didn't choose you because you're brave. They chose you because you're obedient. We don't give them obedience." Jana stared at me like she wanted to believe I had some secret method that would fix everything. I didn't. I just had experience. And experience is mostly the memory of mistakes. "What's in the case?" she whispered. "I don't know," I said. "But we're going to find out without doing what they want." I moved one step to the side and checked the road reflection in the shop window. A black car sat parked further down, engine off, lights out. It wasn't there when I first approached. That meant it had arrived while Jana and I were focused on the suitcase. The driver's silhouette was barely visible. Head down. Phone glow. Watching. I felt that familiar internal shift. The moment you realize you're not at the edge of the situation, you're inside it. Jana's phone buzzed again. Last warning. Then another. Take it or lose her. Jana's face crumpled. "Please," she whispered. "I can't." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my own phone, screen dimmed, and started recording video without holding it up. A simple habit, document the scene so nobody can rewrite it later. Then I did something that looks stupid and works surprisingly often. I made a show of being a normal person. I walked toward the shop, like I was going to buy cigarettes or water, and I nodded at Jana as if we were strangers who just shared an awkward moment at a bus stop. Jana didn't understand at first, then she caught up. She turned slightly away from the suitcase and pretended to scroll her phone, like she'd decided to ignore it. Inside the shop, I went to the counter, bought a bottle of water, and kept my voice casual. "You got cameras?" I asked the cashier. He glanced at the ceiling. "Yeah." "Do they record outside?" I asked. He shrugged. "Some." "Can you see the bus stop on your screen?" I asked. He frowned. "Why?" I leaned in, just enough for urgency to leak through. "Because there's a bag outside and someone's watching it. I'm trying to avoid trouble." The cashier hesitated, then angled his body and flicked his eyes toward a small monitor behind the counter. The bus stop was visible, grainy, wide angle. Jana stood there, small in the frame, the suitcase beside her like an accusation. And the black car down the street? Not visible. The camera didn't cover that far. Of course. I paid for the water, walked back outside, and whispered to Jana, "They're watching from beyond camera range." Jana swallowed. So what now? Now I needed to force their hand. Make them move. Make them reveal the one thing every crime depends on, location. "Do you have your sister's phone password?" I asked. Jana nodded. "Yes." "Do you have access to her accounts?" I asked. "I have her email," she said. "We shared." "Good," I said. "We're going to check one thing." We stepped away from the bus stop toward the brighter street corner, and I asked Jana to open her sister's email on her phone. Not because I expected to find a confession, because kidnappers can't resist messaging. They like leverage, and leverage requires communication. In Mila's inbox, there was one email from that morning with a subject line that looked like spam. "Your delivery is scheduled." Jana tapped it. Her face drained. The email had no company branding, just a single line and a link. "Confirm pickup to proceed." Under that, a tiny note, "Do not involve authorities." A link like that wasn't a delivery confirmation. It was a tracking hook. Click it, and you reveal your IP, your rough location, your device. It was a way for them to confirm Jana was the sister and that she was complying. "Don't click," I said immediately. Jana's eyes widened. "But what if? What if it triggers something?" I said. "Yes. It probably does. That's why we don't click it." Jana looked like she might cry. "Then how do I get her back?" I took a breath and chose the simplest, safest move, involve the police through a channel that wouldn't spook the kidnapper too soon. But I also knew Jana's fear: if I call police, they'll kill her. That threat keeps victims alone. Alone victims are easier to control. "Do you have anyone you trust?" I asked. "My brother," Jana said. "But he's angry." "He'll." "Good," I said. "Angry people can still follow instructions if you make the instructions simple." I told Jana to call her brother and put him on speaker. When he answered, his voice was already tight. "Jana? Where are you?" "Listen," I said. "Your sister's missing. There's a suitcase involved. I need you to do exactly what I say." There was a pause, then, "Who are you?" "A witness," I said. "And the only reason this doesn't get worse is if we make it public safely." I gave him the location and told him to come now, but to stop a block away and watch for a black car. I told him not to approach the suitcase, not to touch it, not to chase anyone. Then I did the thing that makes criminals nervous. I walked right back to the bus stop and stood next to the suitcase again, visible, steady, and obvious. Jana stayed by the shop window, half hidden but not gone. I wanted the watcher to see that something had changed. That the sister wasn't alone anymore. That the script wasn't being followed cleanly. At 1:45, the black car's engine started. Low rumble. No lights. It rolled forward slowly and stopped at the curb 20 meters past the bus stop. The window lowered. A man's voice called softly, "Jana." Jana flinched like the voice carried electricity. The man's face was still mostly shadow. That was deliberate. He didn't want his face on cameras. "Take the case," he said. I stepped forward, putting myself between his voice and Jana. "She's not coming," I said. The silence that followed felt thick. Then the man chuckled once, almost polite. "Who are you?" he asked, as if we were making introductions at a party. "Someone with time," I said. His tone shifted slightly, less amused, more focused. "You think this is a game," he said. "No," I replied. "I think you like games." He didn't deny it. Instead he said, "Open the case." I didn't move. "You don't want that," he added, calm again. "But you'll open it." "Why?" I asked. "Because she'll want to," he replied. And that was the first real twist. This wasn't a ransom exchange. He wasn't asking for money. He wasn't asking for drugs. He wasn't asking for a ride. He was asking for Jana to take an object. An object meant to compromise her. I asked the question that matters in every blackmail operation: what is it? The man's voice softened. "Proof," he said. "That your sister doesn't deserve to come back." Jana made a small sound behind me, half sob, half gasp. The man continued, "Your sister did something. She took something. And now she's being difficult." Difficult. That word is always used by people who hurt others. "What did she take?" I asked. The man paused. "She took what wasn't hers," he said. "And she won't give it back." He was lying. Or telling a truth in a way that served him. Either way, he wanted to shift blame onto Mila, to make Jana feel ashamed for trying to rescue her. Jana stepped forward despite herself. "Where is she?" she demanded. The man's voice cooled. "In a place where people don't ask questions," he said. "Do you want her to stay there?" Jana's hands were shaking. She looked at the suitcase like it might contain her sister's heartbeat. I leaned toward her without taking my eyes off the car. "If you touch it," I whispered, "you become the delivery driver. You carry the evidence away for him." Jana swallowed hard, then nodded. She didn't touch it. The man in the car sighed like a disappointed teacher. "Fine," he said. "We do it another way." The window rose. The car rolled forward, turned at the corner, and disappeared. No squeal. No rush. That's confidence. I didn't chase him. Chasing is how you end up alone, away from cameras, away from witnesses, away from the only leverage you have, public space. Jana's brother arrived 3 minutes later, face flushed, eyes wild. He stormed toward us, then stopped when he saw my raised hand. "Don't touch it," I said. He glared. "That's my sister's." "It's bait," I said. "And you're about to become part of their plan." He looked at Jana, then at the suitcase, then back at me. His anger fought his fear for control. "What's in it?" he asked. "We find out with police," I said. "Not with your fingerprints. We called emergency services." This time Jana didn't argue. She'd seen the car. She'd heard the voice. The threat was no longer theoretical. When police arrived, they treated the suitcase like what it was, a device. Not necessarily a bomb, but a weapon of a different kind. They moved it to a controlled area and opened it with gloves. Inside were 3 things. A stack of printed photos. A USB drive in a small plastic bag. And a phone, Mila's phone, cracked screen, still powered on. The photos were of Mila in a room with plastic curtains, industrial, cold. In some photos she looked sedated. In others she looked awake and terrified. The angle suggested someone else had taken them, close, intimate, confident. The USB drive was labeled in marker, return. And the phone had one open note on the screen. "If you find this, don't trust the building manager." Jana stared at it and whispered, "What building manager?" Her brother's face tightened. "Mila was moving flats," he said slowly. "She said the manager was helping her with an off-market unit because she was behind on rent." My mind snapped into motion. Off-market units. Helpful managers. Keys. Access. Private corridors. All the quiet infrastructure crime loves. I asked Jana one question: where was Mila supposed to move? Jana pulled up the messages. An address. Another modern block near the docks. Alder Quay. The same kind of building where concierge desks and service corridors let people disappear without anyone admitting they saw it. Police moved fast once there was a physical object and explicit images. They love tangible evidence. They love a scene they can picture. They love something that can be presented to a judge without sounding like paranoia. They pulled CCTV from Alder Quay's lobby and service entrances. They pulled lift logs. They pulled access records. And then the second twist arrived, harder than the first. The footage showed Mila entering the building on the night she disappeared, with a woman. Not a man in a van. Not a masked attacker. A woman in a blazer with a clipboard, smiling like she was helping. The woman walked Mila past the concierge desk as if she belonged there. The concierge didn't stop them. He nodded like he knew her. The two of them didn't take the lift. They went through a service door. And the camera covering that door had a 2-minute blackout exactly as they passed through. Not broken. Not glitch. A clean gap. 2 minutes, long enough to move someone into a corridor that doesn't appear on floor plans. Police questioned the concierge. He claimed he didn't remember. They questioned the building manager. He claimed he'd never seen Mila. He insisted the camera outage was maintenance. Maintenance. Always that word. But the note on Mila's phone told us something else. Mila had known the manager mattered. She'd taken the time to type it while she still could. So police looked at what managers have: access. Admin access. Contractor schedules. Camera passwords. Service door codes. And that's when everything broke open. The helpful manager wasn't just managing a building. He was managing a network, short-term, off-market, relocations for vulnerable tenants, especially women behind on rent who wouldn't call lawyers, who wouldn't want police, who were already ashamed. He offered them a private viewing. A shortcut. A solution. Then he moved them through service corridors into rooms that weren't on the marketing brochure, storage units repurposed, service rooms converted, temporary holding spaces hidden behind locked doors. He didn't do it alone. The clipboard woman was his partner, his lure, his friendly face. The black car was the pickup. And the suitcase? It was their control mechanism. Their way of getting families to carry evidence away, to remove objects from scenes, to leave fingerprints that complicate prosecution, to make victims' relatives feel complicit. But Mila had done something they didn't expect. She'd stolen the one thing criminals hate losing. A record. On the USB drive, police found exported camera logs, access codes, and a list of unit numbers that had been temporarily vacant at suspicious times, rooms where people could be held without neighbors noticing because no neighbors existed. Mila had found it, maybe by accident, maybe because she was smarter than the manager thought, and she'd kept it. That was why she became difficult. That was why the threats weren't about money. They were about return. Return the record. Return the leverage. And because she didn't, they tried to trade her for silence. By then, police weren't negotiating. They raided the service levels and storage areas of Alder Quay and 2 other connected blocks. They followed the unit list. They opened doors that were never meant to be opened by anyone without a lanyard. They found Mila alive in a converted maintenance room behind plastic strip curtains, sedated but breathing, wrists bruised from restraints. And in another unit, they found the reason the manager had been so confident for so long. A body. A woman reported missing 3 months earlier, listed as voluntarily absent because she had a history of moving often. That history had been used against her as if instability was consent to vanish. She'd been dead for weeks. The manager and the clipboard woman were arrested that night. The black car driver too. The concierge was charged as an accessory. He claimed he thought it was private security, that he was just following instructions. They always say that. In the aftermath, Jana sat in my office with her sister's hospital bracelet on her wrist like a reminder that time had almost run out. Mila couldn't speak much yet. Sedation does that, it turns words into a slow climb. But she had said one sentence that mattered before she fell asleep again. He kept telling me it was procedure, she'd whispered. Procedure. The same word I'd heard 100 times in 100 cases. The word that turns cruelty into paperwork. Jana looked at me, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Why us? She asked. I answered honestly. Because you were quiet, I said. Because you didn't want police. Because you were careful. Because you were ashamed of being vulnerable. And because she didn't, they tried to trade her for silence. By then, police weren't negotiating. They raided the service levels and storage areas of Alder Quay and 2 other connected blocks. They followed the unit list. They opened doors that were never meant to be opened by anyone without a lanyard. They found Mila alive in a converted maintenance room behind plastic strip curtains, sedated but breathing, wrists bruised from restraints. And in another unit, they found the reason the manager had been so confident for so long. A body. A woman reported missing 3 months earlier, listed as voluntarily absent because she had a history of moving often. That history had been used against her as if instability was consent to vanish. She'd been dead for weeks. The manager and the clipboard woman were arrested that night. The black car driver too. The concierge was charged as an accessory. He claimed he thought it was private security, that he was just following instructions. They always say that. In the aftermath, Jana sat in my office with her sister's hospital bracelet on her wrist like a reminder that time had almost run out. Mila couldn't speak much yet. Sedation does that, it turns words into a slow climb. But she had said one sentence that mattered before she fell asleep again. He kept telling me it was procedure, she'd whispered. Procedure. The same word I'd heard 100 times in 100 cases. The word that turns cruelty into paperwork. Jana looked at me, eyes hollow with exhaustion. Why us? She asked. I answered honestly. Because you were quiet, I said. Because you didn't want police. Because you were careful. Because you were ashamed of being vulnerable.